I mean, this is really important. A lot of people are just asking questions, and in today's conversation, I want to clarify a lot of questions. So I want to talk about cargo van and truck boards. Okay, how do you properly read a load board so you can get the best rates and don't get short-changed? I want you to stick around till the end of today's conversation. I'm Sort of Show. How are you today? I hope you're all doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous, if you were to ask me. If you are doing it as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka. Now let's roll. In today's conversation, I want to talk to you about cargo van and truck boards, okay? And how do you properly read a load board so you can get the best rate and don't get shortchanged. The first thing first, I want to clarify the concept of load boards, because a lot of folks understand that a lot of folks talk about load board, but they have no idea what a load board really is. Okay, so what is a load board? Let's go back to load board 101. So if you are in a cargo van or a trucking or delivery business in general, you probably heard of load boards, right? So load boards, sometimes called freight boards or freight load boards, are online marketplaces where cargo van, truck owner operators, shippers, and freight brokers can post and find loads to keep freight moving. That's all it is, okay? So it's a marketplace. Think about it as a job marketplace, right? So you have a constellation of players, and they come and they just post their opportunities so that they can keep freight moving, okay? So if you are a cargo van owner operator right there, or you are a truck owner operator right there, you want to understand that a load board is just a marketplace. Okay, so how does a load board work? Well, a load board is usually hosted online, okay? So as a user, you pay a subscription to log into the load board to post loads or empty trucks, either moving your freight or loading your trucks, okay? So the load board facilitates communication between broker, shipper, owner-operator, or small carrier. That's all it is. So you have a constellation of players, and the load board as a marketplace facilitates that communication. Okay. And one thing I want to say here is that you got to have a specific strategy in terms of finding the best load boards. Okay. If you are a carrier, okay, depending on the size of the van that you have to be very strategic. And that's what I want to talk about in today's conversation. Now, you have a lot of load boards. We have covered this on another show. So if you're interested, you can just go to our categories, our catalog of shipping videos, and you'll have it there. But just to name a few, you have DAT Solution, okay, DAT, DAT Solutions. You have truckstop.com. There are a lot of players out there. I mean, and some specialize in terms of trucking, some specialize in terms of cargo van. But overall, if you take a load board such as DAT, they cover everything. They cover trucking, they cover cargo van, they cover sprinter van, and so on and so forth. Let's talk about uses. Boss, you have to understand how to use a load board. How do you actually use it? Because again, we are trying to clarify things for a lot of folks here, okay? So using a load board is very easy. So you log into the website or app and search for what you need, okay? So available loads if you're a carrier or owner operator, or available trucks if you are a freight broker or shipper, okay? You can also post specific details such as your equipment and desired destination if you are an owner operator or carrier, or the load that needs transported if you're a shipper or freight broker. So one thing that's very important, you want to start with your geography. Boss, this is very important, okay? So you start with your geography and you talk about the kind of truck you have, the kind of equipment you have, you put some specifications, okay? Make sure that you keep everything professional. It's very important because you never know who's gonna lend you the next big gig, right? Or the next big load. If you want to haul loads for a lot of clients, you have to paint a professional picture of your operation. Okay, so this is important now. So freight brokers and shippers also use a load board. I mean, they use load boards to find drivers for their loads and to check market freight rates. Okay, so to save time for both parties, brokers and shippers are encouraged to post as much information as possible about the load upfront, such as the pickup and delivery locations, the freight type, and the shipping weights. This is kind of cool because you as a carrier, you have all the information you need to actually pick and choose. Now, how do owner operators and carriers use a load board? Well, they use a load board to find loads to transport. That makes sense, right? You're looking for loads to make money, to make sure you reduce your empty miles. Okay, so you can post details about your equipment and where you want to go, which allows shippers and freight brokers to contact you. Or you can search for loads that fit your criteria. Okay, in some cases you can instantly bid on the load, saving you the trouble of negotiating rates. You can also filter your search results by a specific load type, such as drop and hook, or whatever your specialty is. So this is very important, boss. So I want to talk to you about how a transportation broker uses a load board. Okay, so they use a load board to find drivers, to find equipment, to keep freight moving. So here you have it. You have 3 or 4 parties who come together on a load board to make sure that they keep the freight moving. Okay, so next time you go on a load board, I want you to keep in mind this a trio or this a quatuor of players. Very important. So as a carrier, as an owner operator, you have to deal with shippers, with freight brokers, with other players. Okay, very important. Let's talk about a very important thing. Let's talk about that bread, that paper, monetization. How do you use a load board to grow your cargo van or trucking business? Okay, and there are ways to do this. I mean, you got to have a plan. You know, we see a lot of players, we see a lot of shippers, a lot of carriers rather, who actually use a load board randomly. No, boss. No, you got to have a plan. Okay, it's all about logic. Okay, so first thing is you need to specify what your cost and rate per mile is. You got to have a clear idea. Okay, a load board is not going to tell you how much you want to charge. You have to know how much you're charging. Okay, and you need to understand that your cost and rate per mile has to deal with a lot of things. It depends on where you are shipping from. I mean, where you are carrying from. Okay, your own company's internal dynamics. How much you need to make money, because you got to survive too, right? So don't bid too low though, because otherwise you'll be hauling loads that you really are frustrated with. Okay, and the thing is that there's a problem with load boards. Load boards tend to actually underbid, they tend to drag load prices low because you're bidding with the other players. But one thing I want to say here is that do not actually engage in the price to the bottom. Not at all. It's not worth it, boss. It's not worth it. Don't be desperate, because hey, if you actually get a load that they're not paying you properly, and you're losing money, this is really bad, because you have, remember, as a owner operator, you have fixed costs that are really high already. I'm talking about insurance. I'm talking about maintenance of the truck or cargo van that you're driving. I'm speaking about gas. There are a lot of things. So you gotta eke out some revenue. You gotta make some money. Okay. So do not engage in this price to the bottom thing. This war by reducing the price. Not worth it. You need to use load boards strategically. Okay, so I'm talking about collecting market intelligence, handling excess capacity, trying to find opportunities to always outbid your competitor. Okay, and you want to avoid the financial problem that I talked about by reducing your rate. No, you want to set a reasonable rate that is competitive. So choose the right load boards. Very important. If you want to grow your business, son, daughter, I'm talking to you. If you want to grow your business, you want to choose the right load boards. You want to network with brokers and dispatchers. A lot of players out there, a lot of carriers, they just spend their time in their cargo van or truck. No, I want you to get your ass out there and start networking with brokers and dispatchers. Do you want them to know you? Okay, and please overhaul your website or build a new one. Okay. Simply because you are an owner operator doesn't mean that you don't need a website. You need a website. You need a homepage, an about page, a services page, a contact page, okay? And gather testimonials and review. Okay, testimonials and reviews, so that basically a lot more people know about you. What I'm trying to tell you here is I'm giving you the foundation, the template, the blueprint you need to actually set your business on a good path. Okay, if you want to start a blog, why not? You can outsource the whole thing. You can have people writing for you, because you don't have time. You're driving all the time. You don't have to maintain the blog yourself. You can outsource the whole thing. If you're interested in that, just drop us a comment. We'll explain more how the whole thing goes. Let's talk about freight rates. This is very important. If you are trying to go to cargo van and truck boards, load boards, you need to have a clear idea of what freight rates are. Okay, so when we talk about LTL freight rates or FTL freight rates, you got to really understand. So freight rates are actually calculated based on a constellation of things. So you're thinking about the shipment, the location, the ship to, the ship from, the equipment being used. We're talking about the weight, dimensions, and freight class. Those are really important. Okay, so you have to think about factors such as density, handling, stowability, and liability. Okay, and those are really important in terms of classifying the LTL freight. One thing you need to also understand is the origin and the destination. Okay, so the further your freight needs to go, the more expensive it will be due to higher fuel cost. Okay, more stops at transit hubs along the way, and more person hours put into transporting the shipment. So really important. And now I'm just talking to if you're a freight broker, but I'm speaking also to those carriers. In other words, you have to take those factors into consideration to set your price. Okay, fuel cost, very important. Accessorial charges. I'm talking about lift gate service, residential pickup or delivery, remote or limited access locations, inside delivery, special delivery times. Son, all of those factors are important. Okay, so when you bid on a load board, I want you to have those criteria in mind so that you don't underbid. Okay, and because you got to keep your business running anyway, right? So sometimes you have to. The best way to do this is to have a minimum charge. Okay, so minimum charges are the lowest price a carrier will offer, no matter the circumstances. And the minimum charge ensures that as a carrier, son, you cover all your fixed cost and overhead for a specific shipment or route. Okay, ask your carrier about the minimum rates. Okay, if you are a freight broker, but you have to be very careful about that. So minimum charge is important, and sometimes you have negotiated rates, so you can negotiate the rates with the carrier or with the broker, depending on the distance being covered, depending on the load you're hauling, depending on the equipment you have. Okay, but the bottom line is I want to summarize by saying here, you want to have a minimum rate that covers everything and that just leaves you with a little bit of profit. Okay, that's the minimum. That's really the minimum. I want to dig a little deeper here because this is a question that we have received. We have actually received tens of questions regarding this concept. So I want to dig a little deeper here. So, boss, we're still having a conversation about cargo van and truck load boards, right? I want to dig a little deeper. So when you think about truck freight rates, when you think about cargo van freight rates, you have to think about the distance you're covering, but also your fixed cost. Now, fixed costs are really important. I spoke earlier about insurance. Yes, that's true. But don't forget that you have to comply with some regulations. Okay, if you're doing out-of-state transportation, you have to think about your DOT number. You have to think about your MCN. There are a lot of things you have to think about. Okay, we don't have time. Otherwise, I'll go through the list for you. But it's really important. You have to calculate your cargo van or trucking freight rates. You have to think about available routes and loads, the shipment weights. Shipment weights is very important. The freight classification. So when we talk about the freight logistics industry, each type of shipment has a specific classification. Okay, and this is something that the National Motor Freight Traffic Association, the NMFTA, has done, and they have actually defined 18 classes of commodity shipments. Okay, so several factors determine the freight class, including the product density, the liability, the product value, the handling needs, and the stowability. So taken together, these factors determine the load's transportability. So less transportable loads often command a higher rate, which makes sense. Okay, if you are doing something that not a lot of people want to do, then you better be paid more. Okay, so in terms of the shipping methods, you have to think about 5 basic freight shipping methods. So we have full truckload, FTL, partial truckload, PTL, less than truckload, LTL. You have intermodal, and you have expedited. So cargo van usually are in the expedited category. Okay, and the cool thing you need to understand is that depending on the product, depending on those classifications that I told you earlier, and the shipping method you have, you need to actually have a specific rate. Okay, you also have to think about dry van rates. Okay, those are based on the equipment you have, the distance, the supply and demand. This is one thing we need to think about also, and also seasonal demand, because rates can also vary by season. Okay, for example, summer is often a very heavy a very heavy time for shipping fresh produce from agricultural areas. Okay, so this can significantly impact the number of available trucks and increase rates. Let me give you now the step-by-step you need to have, okay, once and for all, in using a load board. Now, using a load board itself is not complicated. It's about understanding. It's understanding the whole logistics, if you will, quote unquote logistics around the load board that makes things complicated. And that's what that's why I started talking to you about load boards in general, the uses, the monetization process, the freight rate. Okay. And now that you have a clear understanding of those concepts, using a load board is very easy. You just have to log in and get familiar with your dashboard. Okay. First of all, if you are interested in choosing a load board, I recommend that you go back to our video about the subject. We actually released a video about a month ago about the best load boards. And hey, listen, if you are interested, just drop us a comment. I will send you the link, and not a problem. But if you can also go to our catalog of freight and logistics videos, and you can find it there. Okay, so you just need to log in and get familiar with your dashboard. If you've chosen, let's say, truckstop.com or that solutions, it really depends on you, or load planner. Okay, it's really what it is. So you have to get familiar with your dashboard. So when we say dashboard, we're not talking about your cab's dash though. Okay, so your dashboard is a home display on software that contains helpful information. So most dashboards contain national load counts and even a 15-day average on the pay of the load. Okay, so this is kind of cool, and it's important that you take the time to get technically familiar with how to use a load board's dashboard, including all the insights that you have access to. Okay, remember that when you're learning how to use a load board, these features will vary depending on whether you are using a free or paid service. Okay, this is what it is. So in this instance, you really do get paid. You really do get what you pay for. So after familiarizing yourself with your dashboard, you need to find, right? You need to actually input your location and cargo van or truck specifications into the database. So generally speaking, one thing we have seen here is that in our research is that once you are, let's say, you have inputted your information into the network of drivers, you'll be able to search through posted jobs by locations and truck or cargo van type and find whichever is the best for your specific needs. Okay, this is probably one of the biggest benefits to learning how to use a load board and utilizing it to its full potential. Okay, so depending on the software you are using, there may be differences in offerings. Okay, this is kind of cool. And so step number one, log in and get familiar with your dashboard. Step number two, find. And number three, and just be found. You see, the last step takes some time though. Brokers are learning how to use a load board too, but once you have inputted your information, do not be surprised when they connect about a job. Okay, think of this step a bit like a job interview. So it's important to know and share your current and future destinations, truck or cargo van type, as well as its length and weight. Okay, we would suggest that you want to include a dock and cargo, and even the amount of 4x4 pallets you can fit on your equipment. Okay, whatever specifications you can include to help you stand out, the better. Very important. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another section of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. We are still having a conversation today about cargo van and truck load boards, and I want to talk to you now about your competition. Son, dad, mom, I'm talking to you. Okay, I want you to learn about your competition, because when you go on a load board, you have other players out there. You're not the only carrier. Okay, it's very important. So one great benefit that we love about load boards is that they allow you to see how many posted trucks or cargo vans are in your lane. So the search process is the same, okay, but instead of searching for loads, you are searching for trucks or cargo vans, okay. So you want to know how many cargo vans or trucks are in the area. It's because knowing the number of available loads in a given area is only half the battle when you think about it. You also need to know the number of available trucks or cargo vans. So if an area has, let's say, 300 available loads, but only 50 or 75 trucks and 25 cargo vans, then you know there are roughly 6 loads or 5 loads per truck. In some cases, 4. So you have some room to negotiate a better rates for your business. This is really important, okay? So you constantly have to think about the number of, think about it as a supply and demand analysis, right? So the demand is the number of available loads, okay? And then the supply is basically the number of cargo vans or trucks available, okay? And you have to think about what you are legally able to haul. Pay attention to weight limits, okay? Does the loads weight require a special permit? Because heavier loads also use more fuel, okay? Does the freight rate make sense for the weight distance of the load? Very important. Don't you try to chase a load just because of the money. Think about the economics of it, okay? Will you make money on the load? Because this is what it is. You're taking money out of your own pocket by accepting a load that pays you less than it costs to run your truck or cargo van. So be aware of deadhead miles and other fees, okay? Where is the drop-off location? If you are driving into a location known for having high fees, I'm talking about lumpers, tolls, long detention times, make sure the freight rate is enough to cover them and your cost of operation, okay? So this is totally what it is. And what is the good rate for the lane depends on your own operations, your own internal dynamics, okay? And if you want to have more information about how to negotiate freight rates, how to set freight rates, just drop us comments below. We'll definitely be happy to answer you, okay? I want to talk now about the sweetest loads, okay? Loads where you make a lot of money, okay? So what types of cargo van and truck and freight pay the best rates? It really depends. But one thing for sure, based on our research, and we have been researching this for many decades here, not even years, decades. To maximize your profitability, you want to move more freight that pays a higher trucking or cargo van freight rates, okay? Typically, flatbed rates are the best, but those can vary too if you are carrying special equipment or a large haul that can't fit into a container, okay? So when we talk about trucking, LTL shipments typically pay higher rates than full truckloads because drivers make multiple stops and might need to handle loading and unloading. Now, in general, okay, routes and cargo also impacts rates. So I'm speaking here about cargo vans and trucks in general, okay? So there are 4 types of loads that tend to pay significantly more than the average. So we have hazmat freight, okay? As you might expect, hauling hazardous materials carries some inherent risk, okay? So you also need a special endorsement. So these 2 factors raise the rates you can charge. You have ice road freight. So likewise, driving on a road made of pure ice is not for the faint of the heart, okay? Ice road truckers and cargo van drivers command the highest rates of all, and you can still drive traditional routes during the off season. Liquid and gas tankers, that's for drivers truckers. Liquid and gas loads tend to be unstable, okay? One thing I want to say here is that safety, your safety is paramount. You will also need a special endorsement, so expect to charge more for this challenging loads. Oversized freight, so transporting heavy machinery and other oversized loads takes specialized skills and licensing. Because the job is so complex, the rates tend to be higher, okay? So if you want to find the best cargo van and truck and freight rates, gauge load activity by origin and destination with load density. You want to monitor load to truck ratios or load to cargo van ratios, okay? Search high paying loads across lanes. This is important. You want to find out which loads pay the highest rates regardless of which lane you choose. And you want to get rate the recommendations by lane and load type, okay? So this is kind of important. And one thing I want to say is you want to constantly network, son. You want to constantly network. This is how you're going to find loads. And most importantly, you want to deliver your last load. You want to maintain excellent customer service, because we say in our research, and we have seen it time and again, your last delivery is your next delivery. If you treat your clients properly, if you do the right thing, if you arrive on time, if you deliver everything on time, there goes your next delivery. It's all about having customer loyalty, okay? Because one thing for sure is that your customer, the recipients of your last delivery, is gonna need you again and again and again and again. Thank you so much for your attention. In today's conversation, I was just talking to you about cargo van and truck load boards, okay? How do you properly read a load board so you can get the best rates and do not get shortchanged? So we spoke about load boards, we spoke about the uses, the monetization process, the freight rates, the step-by-step, the competition, and the sweetest loads you need to think about. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.